We're ready.
I think you're still muted, Chair Cranston. Chair, I think you're still muted.
There we go. Okay. So I will start over. We'll open the August 18th meeting of the Environmental Planning Commission at 7:01 p.m. This meeting is being conducted in accordance with the State of California Executive Order N-29-20 dated March 17, 2020, and the State of California Executive Order N-8-21 dated June 11, 2021. All members of the EPC are participating in this meeting by video conference with no physical meeting location. Members of the public wishing to observe the meeting may do so on YouTube at mountainview.gov/YouTube. As noted in the meeting agenda, members of the public may provide oral comments during the public comment section of the item by signing up at mountainview.gov/EPC_speakers. Emails and voicemails received by 5 p.m. today were forwarded to the EPC. All votes will be taken by roll call, and now I will ask EPC Clerk Horan to proceed with the roll call.
Commissioner Capriles.
Here.
Commissioner Haymeyer.
Here.
Commissioner Dempsey.
Here.
Commissioner Yin.
Here.
Vice Chair Lowe.
Here.
And Chair Cranston.
Here. Okay. So first item on the agenda is meeting minutes, and there are none to review at this meeting. The next item on the agenda is oral communications. This portion of the meeting reserved for persons wishing to address the EPC on matters that are not on the agenda. Speakers are allowed to speak on any topic for up to 3 minutes during this session. State law prohibits the Commission from acting on any non-agendized items. Would any member of the public on the line like to address, provide a comment on a non-agendized item? If so, please click the raise hand button in Zoom or press *9 on your phone. Phone users can mute and unmute themselves with the *6. Clerk Horan will start the timer and let you know when your time is up. And do we have anyone wishing to speak?
I'm not seeing anybody at this time. Don't know if I want to give it a few seconds. But no, doesn't look like anyone's raising their hands.
Then we'll move on to agenda item number 5, public hearing. This is a discussion of the general plan amendment for 1555 Plymouth Street, North Bay Shore Precise Plan amendments and the Gateway Master Plan. Before starting, we have an announcement from Vice Chair Lowe. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Although I do not have a statutory conflict of interest, I'm recusing myself from this agenda item out of an abundance of caution to avoid any potential perception of a conflict due to the fact that Google, one of the major landowners in the Gateway Master Plan area, contributes financially to Canopy, an environmental nonprofit organization for which I volunteer as a board member. So I will sign off now and join back for the next agenda item. Thank you and see you then.
Thank you. So we will start off with a presentation by Martin Alcar, Advanced Planning Manager. Martin.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, Commission. Tonight's item, as noted, is a public hearing for the Gateway Master Plan, a general plan amendment for the property at 1555 Plymouth Street, and for some North Bay Shore Precise Plan amendments. My presentation will focus on 3 things. First of all, the Gateway Master Plan, some background and policy foundation and strategy and elements of the plan. I'll then move into the general plan amendment and then follow up with the precise plan amendments. In terms of the Gateway Master Plan, on your screen is a map showing the North Bayshore area. The colored areas are the complete neighborhood boundaries within the precise plan. And the Gateway area, the subject of tonight's hearing, is shown on the screen as well. It's at Shoreline and 101. The city has a strong policy foundation for this Gateway area. The general plan has several policies highlighting the importance of this area. The first one is the policy idea of a city gateway. That is to create identifiable gateways as you enter different parts of the city. And as you enter the North Bayshore area, the gateway area is a prominent area as you enter that area. So there's special attention given to the area. Additionally, it's along Shoreline Boulevard, as noted, where there's an interest in diversifying the land uses along that corridor to not include just office, but include a variety of other retail and residential uses. And finally, the general plan specifically calls out the 101 Shoreline Gateway area as a special area for future development. Secondly, the precise plan for North Bayshore in the Gateway area, it highlights this area as the highest land use intensities and, of course, building heights allowed in that area. It is adjacent to services in transit planned and existing, so it's a key area in that regard. And it's also part of the complete neighborhood strategy as shown on the screen. Here's an image that shows the existing Gateway site. Again, it's bordered by Highway 101 and Shoreline Boulevard. And as you can see in the foreground, there are some older office or retail buildings, excuse me. The movie theater is towards the rear of the site. And then there's a large surface parking lot at the site as well. Just to fast forward to kind of the big idea behind this Gateway Master Plan, here's a rendering of a conceptual build out of the area. Again, kind of an aspirational build out showing how this area could potentially redevelop with much more urban type buildings, higher building heights, the frontages along Shoreline kind of holding, or the buildings holding that frontage, some smaller open space or urban plazas in the middle, and then some new streets in the area. In terms of strategy and elements, I'm just going to highlight a few key ideas behind the plan. First of all, within the Gateway Master Plan, which was an attachment to your staff report, I just wanted to note that the Gateway Master Plan relies on many of the existing North Bayshore precise plan standards for the Gateway area. And then it also establishes some new Gateway specific standards based on kind of a further refinement and analysis of the area. The Gateway Master Plan also importantly coordinates improvements across this roughly 30-acre area, coordinating improvements such as the location and design of new streets, open space for the area, as well as some utility improvements. It also emphasizes multimodal improvements, not only just for vehicles, but also for bike and pedestrians. That's an important concept in the North Bayshore Precise Plan, as well as the community at large. And then it also creates some flexibility. In a perfect world, we would have a coordinated development between the two major property owners, but the way the plan is written, it does allow for individual development on either of the major property owners' sites. And so that's creates some flexibility. Additionally, there is land use flexibility across the site, the larger area, for a variety of different land uses. Here's just some images kind of showing the form and character of some of the spaces we'd like to create through the eventual build out of the Gateway Master Plan. A few images of a potential central plaza area, kind of a retail main street with buildings close to the sidewalk, supporting a vibrant streetscape, and then smaller neighborhood park spaces. In terms of kind of the key land use strategies and elements, here's the plan area showing the locations of new streets in dark gray. and then showing in colors, kind of a greenish yellow, orange, and blue, kind of the smaller land use sub-districts within this Gateway Master Plan area. We have the residential area, which is furthest away from Highway 101 and closer to future residential north of Plymouth. The mixed use area, again, in the tan color, close to Shoreline Boulevard to support more of the retail and services there. And then also the entertainment mixed use area in blue, where some additional commercial and potential parking structures could be located. And then also the plan has a variety of diverse land uses allowed, both some minimum and maximums. The mix of land uses that you see here roughly correspond to what was studied in our North Bay Shore Precise Plan and North Bay Shore Precise Plan EIR, with some further refinements based on the additional analysis done for this plan. Moving on to the second part of the item tonight, general plan amendment for 1555 Plymouth Street. On the screen is a map showing the proposed new land use designation for that parcel. It's currently the general plan land use designation is high intensity office, and the proposal is to amend that to mixed use center North Bay Shore. That would be the same designation as the larger adjacent gateway area. And the reason for that is that this parcel is relatively narrow, and by combining it with the gateway designation, it maximizes the utility not only of the narrow parcel, but also enlarges the area for future redevelopment of the gateway area and can allow for some more diverse land uses instead of just high intensity office. So staff is recommending that amendment. And then lastly, this project also includes some minor North Bay Shore Precise Plan amendments, some text edits to the master plan section of the Precise Plan to clarify some of those policy changes, and then also some additions to the bonus FAR review guidelines, which is an addendum to the Precise Plan. And I can speak more to that later, but essentially we are trying to finish up the final allocation of the bonus FAR for North Bay Shore. So these review guidelines, the amendments, will hopefully get us to that final stage. And then also in attachment to the staff report, there are a series of minor changes to some of the mobility chapter maps that we're bringing forward as well. That concludes my presentation. I just would like to note that on the call tonight, we have several of our consultant team members, Chris Sensenig, our urban design consultant, Christy Weiss and Tyler Rogers, our CEQA consultants, and Dan Rubens, our traffic engineer from Fear and Pierce. Thank you very much, and that concludes staff's presentation.
Okay. Next, we'll open it for EPC questions. Do any members of the commission have questions for staff or the consultants that were attending? So please raise your hand. None so far. Oh, Commissioner Yin.
Yes, very quick question. I was just wondering, I noticed in the street sections, none of them showed the intersection. And I was hoping that the stormwater management areas of the street section that widen the park space, that dimension would also be at the intersections as bulb outs, so that the crosswalks that are shown in the street sections occur as just as narrow at the intersections. When you cross the street, it feels like the street is narrower and it's easier to walk across. And just because there wasn't a diagram, I wasn't sure. So I was just asking if that would be the case, and that's it.
Yes, as you know, in many of our intersections, we do have that bulb out. And I'm not exactly sure for this plan where we can show that, but certainly we can follow up with our Public Works Department and look at some to clarify where we might be able to include that if at all, in the master plan, or at least reference a city standard. So thank you for that comment.
Thank you.
Are there commissioner questions? I have one. What kind of financial analysis has been done to validate whether this proposal actually provides an economic basis to succeed?
Thank you, Chair. Over the past several years, we have had some economic analysis done at various stages of the North Bay Shore Precise Plan implementation, both pre-COVID and a little bit post-COVID. But the analysis that has been done by Seifel and Associates, our main economic analyst, really does present the idea that it is challenging to develop at North Bay Shore. And we know that from not only the analysis, but from recent projects such as the 1255 Pear Avenue Sobrato development. There's definitely challenges with not only the fees, but also with the costs of construction and also the changing demand for different land uses, particularly office, but also retail. So we understand that it is a challenge. We are taking forward some amendments to our parkland fee ordinance this year. But also I just wanted to remind the commission that this is a long-term plan. So the land uses and all the standards that you see in this plan is for a long-term build out. So certainly we all recognize the challenges today, but the hope is that in the future, things can hopefully improve and this can be built out according to plan, or if not, amendments can be made to make it more feasible.
Thank you. Commissioner Capellas.
Is this particular parcel on Plymouth, is there a different owner for that particular parcel?
That parcel is owned by Google.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Hairmeyer.
Can you talk a little bit about the dynamic of the two landowners in the gateway parcels, or in the gateway area? I was struck by some of the comments from SciWest and just wonder what the relationship has been like with staff in terms of collaboration and thinking through their thoughts on this plan. It seemed like they had a lot of concerns and Google was largely supportive, and I'd love to understand that context a little better.
Sure. So staff has been working closely with both Google and SciWest for a number of years now. For the first phase of our interaction was really trying to help the two property owners come together to try to, propose a joint development plan for the area. That was several years of discussions between them as well as with staff. Obviously, that did not materialize, which is why we are in this position where the city is bringing forward this Gateway Master Plan. And as a city-initiated master plan, we have had more of our focus on kind of the city standards that we wanted to see. And we have been in contact with both property owners, not as much as before, but we have checked in with them from time to time. But again, as a city-initiated plan, we wanted to put forward the policies and standards we felt were best for the city, while still involving them in some discussions.
Thank you.
Other commissioner questions? No? Okay. This next section is for public comment. Would any member of the public on the line like to provide comment on this item? If so, please click the raise hand button in Zoom or *9 on your phone. Phone users can mute and unmute themselves with *6. The APC clerk will start the timer to let you know when your time is up. Clerk Haran, are any attendees looking to speak?
It looks like we have one raised hand. How long would you like me to set the timer for?
3 minutes is fine.
Now we have 2. So I'm calling Bruce England.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Good. Okay, yeah, Bruce England speaking for Mountain View Coalition for Sustainable Planning and Green Spaces Mountain View. Just very briefly, we're very supportive of the plans here, the intentions, and partnering with Google and SciWest and other developers in the area. Sounds like really great partnership will be developed through this. Green Spaces Mountain View is particularly interested in landscaping choices, so specifically native, drought tolerant, climate resilient, pollinator friendly plants, and not removing trees if possible. And that might be outside of what you're talking about, but nonetheless, I wanted to say it. And then, yes, stormwater management too is an important detail. But by and large, seeing the work that Google in particular has done in the North Bay Shore area, we did a bike ride through the Silicon Valley Bicycle Coalition the other day and went through the Shorebird bird sanctuary area. It was very impressive. The whole thing is really good. I think that area is coming along very nicely, and seeing housing up there and in East Wisman, these are markers for good progress for our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
We have Bill Vieira.
Hello, can you, I guess you can't see me, I'm not on the screen, but hopefully you can hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Fantastic, thank you. Well, good evening, Chair Cranston and Commission members. I'm Bill Vieira, I'm with SciWest Development. I sincerely appreciate the opportunity to comment and to join you tonight. I appreciate this has been a long process, and fortunately 30 years in the real estate business, I've been engaged in a number of master plans and planning processes all over the country. And this one, while nuanced, is certainly been interesting. As staff mentioned, we've endeavored to stay engaged and to work with staff and the consultants throughout this process to provide some hopefully collaborative and constructive input all along the way. And we're fortunate in that our company, we have many decades of experience in residential, commercial, and office development, and we felt that providing this input would be useful in developing a viable master plan that really achieved the goals set forth in the North Bay Shore Precise Plan, especially for this gateway area. It's important to us as well. We provided what we thought was real world and relevant information as to the types of uses that were being proposed and the development challenges with implementing each one of those. And we appreciate completely, this is a complex project. It's a complex environment that we're all working within. And while we appreciate all the efforts to assemble this information, unfortunately, we do feel that some of our input has largely been dismissed. But I think for us, what's most disappointing is that, and it was touched on a moment earlier, the master plan is still completely void of addressing any means as to how to account for the economic disconnect. And in so doing, it really creates kind of an infeasible dream, if you will, that the gateway will be developed in a manner that was envisioned by the community. The city's own financial consultant essentially validated that the very basis of this master plan lacks the financial feasibility for any of this development to actually occur. And I appreciate that it's long-term, but over time, these issues don't go away. They don't lessen, they get bigger, and they are exacerbated as more impacts in the area are created. And hopefully everyone remembers that this very same issue was raised in conjunction with the reallocation of the FAR away from this site a number of months ago, and the mere act of reallocating the office, which we all know is the currency, it essentially removed any remaining means to pay for this vision. And so this is still indeed the case. Honestly, it's a fatal flaw, and there's a stunning silence as to how it intends to address it through this master plan. There are other relevant issues, but the bottom line is that, we appreciate the city needs to conclude their process, but without the buy-in and the support of both property owners, it's not really right. I did see in the staff package a letter from Google, and while I completely understand their perspective and their approach, they own nearly all of North Bay Shore, and they have the ability to defer or to spread out the impacts, but it doesn't change the master plan. Oh, sorry. I was just going to conclude. It doesn't change the fact that it relies on more than one party. So all we're asking at a minimum is that before approving, that the staff is asked to go back and include a section that addresses the very basic aspects related to the financial feasibility. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have any other speakers?
We do not.
All right, then we will bring this back for EPC deliberation and action. So, any discussion? Don't be bashful. I know it's been a long summer. Commissioner Yin.
Well, I think the last speaker speaks to probably the elephant in the room and is the largest issue. I think, at least for me personally, I was fairly excited about this plan. There are lots of things to be excited about, and I don't need to go into all of them. But part of the excitement is that at some point it does get built out, and I understand it's a long-term process. But to hear that the two major property owners disagree about the feasibility to such an extent just has me a little bit concerned. So I would love to hear more about everyone else's thoughts too. I just am noting that that is the sort of the thing that rings the bell at this point for me.
Commissioner Caprillos?
I really agree with you, Commissioner Yin. And the one thing that made this whole thing complex to me as I went through and kind of reviewed the overall master plan, there seems to be, I'm kind of missing the transportation part. That always seems to come up, and it came up with the precise plan when we went through that. And you know, we're relying on other agencies to help us kind of solve this issue of the enormous amount of mobility in and out of this area, you know, and how is that really gonna work? We talked about, you know, the you know, charging for entering the area, and at the time we talked about it, we thought that that was like a pie in the sky. Oh, it'll never happen. But you know, I wonder about the transportation, the infrastructure. We're talking about new streets, you know, new utilities, and it's just an enormous, complex issue that if we've got two people and what they want is office and residential, and they want to, you know, go in and get their benefit from the build, are we ever going to get beyond those particular issues so we can kind of start and move forward? Because I think this is what the overall intent of kind of developing this gateway, but we still seem to be at an impasse that I'm kind of at a loss of, you know, what are the next steps and how do we really make this move forward like we would, you know, we'd like to see it just start. So that's kind of my, you know, immediate thoughts anyway.
Thank you. Commissioner Dempsey.
So I think Commissioner Yin and Commissioner Caprillas put words well to what I was feeling, but I wasn't sure I could explain it as well as they. You know, as the newest member of the commission, I many times I assumed that there must be a reason for something, and I just wasn't here to hear it. And so I tended to stay a bit quiet sometimes. But I am concerned that there appears to be a lack of general agreement between two major landholders that we're looking to make this plan a reality. That concerns me, and there may be good reason for it. There may be answers to it, or maybe it's all going to get worked out in a couple of years. But I don't know that, and so it does make me feel concerned. And I wouldn't want us and staff in the city to spend a bunch of time building a plan that isn't going to happen. And I guess I would say further that I am concerned about sort of changing nature of the real estate market and sort of how different tech companies plan to use that space. How many people are going to come back to the office? It's a good question. And I think I could be very easily persuaded that the analysis that's in the master plan is a good one. I just would love to see a little bit more, perhaps from staff, kind of reassuring me that they've gone back, they've got fresh data about what the trends are, and that data and that understanding has been sort of baked into the numbers that are in the master plan. So I guess there's a way in which I'm not yet totally convinced that that what we have is current to 2021. And I'm open to being convinced of that. But as it stands now, I am feeling a bit uncertain and a bit unsettled, I guess.
Yeah. Commissioner Haymire? You in town?
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate the comments from my fellow commissioners. I think what I appreciate most about the city-led master plan is the efforts to continue the momentum. I think the vision for North Bay Shore is an ambitious one, and it's long-term, and we requires many pieces to come to fruition, and the gateway is critical to that. I think understanding the mobility and connectivity piece is critical, along with the economic feasibility. And I guess I'm comfortable that the master plan is an attempt to put a vision out there, and will vary based on economic analyses and many factors that are just really hard predictions to make. And I don't think we will have all of the information, and I think we need to do some level of planning and effort to move this forward. And I think the comments about whether this is economically feasible makes me at least pause to say, where do we drive and say, this is the city-led master plan that we want to get something going, and then really confront that with what Seifel and Associates have said. So I think I'd like to understand that piece a little bit more, as Commissioner Young led off with.
Thank you. My experience with Mr. Alkire is that terms like challenging are, I perceive sometimes as understatements. So I'm in the letter from Cy West Martin. A statement is made that the city's own financial consultant validated that the master plan lacks financial feasibility for any development to actually occur. That seems stronger than challenging. Can you comment on that, please?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's probably exaggeration on both ends, or maybe not as clear a definition as possible, but I would like to just note a couple things. Again, it is a long-term plan, and certainly the numbers that we know are very challenging, as I noted, the fees and the construction costs. That being said, as a city-initiated master plan, the city is more than willing to entertain a proposal from either SciWest or Google that might say, well, this is how we think we can make this work. Maybe a certain amount of land use that we have in the plan is not realistic, and we propose a different number. That's all possible with moving forward with a developer-initiated plan that might suggest or recommend some amendments to our city plan, and that's always been an option available. And I would like to also note that certainly the retail numbers are challenging. It's a continuously challenging environment to get retail built. But I would like to add that the other land use designation, mixed use center in the city, we have two. One is here at Gateway, the other is at San Antonio Center. San Antonio Center has over 100,000 square feet of retail and restaurant. Their phase 3 is moving forward with, I think, another 15,000 square feet of retail and restaurant. Again, I'm not saying that it's an easy build, but I am saying that it is possible. In addition, Google is proposing 20,000 square feet of retail within this Gateway Master Plan area, in addition to roughly 250,000 of retail and restaurant throughout North Bay Shore. So again, not saying that it's easy by any means, But as a long-term plan, I think it's something that we are proposing a flexible amount of land uses and variety of land uses for that area. And just to reiterate, we would be open to a developer, be it Google or SciWest, coming forward with a plan and saying, we recommend this amendment to the Gateway Master Plan, and this is what we think could work financially.
So I guess I'm one of the things that I have, and there's no way to put numbers around it because it's not the reality today. One of the concerns that I've had with the Gateway in general is that it's a piece of a much bigger area, all of North Bayshore, and in this particular case, one of the two landowners has the ability to offset any concern that they may have within this area with other parts of their master plan that include the rest of Joaquin, Shorebird, and I guess the other one is Pear. So without being able to, have a world where there's only two landowners and this is all that they had to work with, it's hard to say whether Google would be as enthusiastic or not, because they do have that ability to trade off into others, as Martin just said, that they have other retail that they're proposing in other areas of North Bayshore, where SciWest is kind of trapped in this space, and it has to be viable in this space or it's not viable at all. And that's my concern, is that it's we're obviously, we don't do our planning based on one landowner, but it needs to take into account. In the end of the day, I think Martin and team have done a great job of delivering on something that kind of meets a vision that I would love to see. But I think another part of what we have to ask ourselves is it likely to occur? And right now, my feeling is that the vision looks great, but that the likelihood of it actually occurring is extremely low. And for that reason, I'm reluctant to move ahead with something like this. If we could get, I know there's been a lot of effort to try to get the two of them talking, but I wish there was something that was brought forward by SciWest and Google jointly, because I just right now I don't feel like, yeah, it's something long term, but we never get what we want at all. It doesn't actually serve the city today. So that's my biggest concern, is it may be a nice vision, but it seems unlikely to actually move ahead at this point. Commissioner Capellas.
And I'm curious if the other smaller landowners have had any input into this at all. I mean, where do we stand with those smaller landowners? Do they have any thoughts or ideas? And has that been all incorporated into this overall larger vision, Martin?
We really have not heard directly from smaller property owners for the Gateway Master Plan in particular. We have had smaller property owners comment on the larger precise plan, but not for this Gateway plan.
Are we gonna ask?
I think we've certainly notified folks. We have not had any response from people. Again, the smaller property owners, there's not, most of the area is owned. The land holdings in this area are obviously owned by Google. So I'm not sure what type of outreach or input we might get from small property owners, to be honest.
Yeah, because I'm wondering if they feel like their input would even be received, given this, the state of the land ownership surrounding them.
Commissioner Yin.
Yeah, I do appreciate the need for the city to move forward with a plan, much as Commissioner Haymeyer had mentioned. And Mr. Alkire had mentioned, and that because of the years-long efforts and nothing was happening when the parcel holders were trying to do so, the city needs to step in and take some action. The balance is the vision and the ideal, which we're always striving for. And it is a long-term plan, and we hope to get there. Conditions will change. That's inevitable. Which direction, we don't know, but we can only do our best to guess. And so I tend to, for master plans, want to go towards a little bit more of the ideal, because it is a long-term plan and because it is from the city and you are aiming for the best use of the land for the most people, for the community. I do, as I brought up earlier, share the concern about the viability. And so I had just a couple questions. And one is whether there are potential forthcoming proposals. Has either party mentioned that we've got something in the works we're going to show you? And the other was going back to your question of the FAR. And I know you didn't have a lot of time to discuss it, but if you could maybe go over a little bit about how that office FAR is going to, the bonus, sorry, FAR is going to get processed, that would help. And also I recall somebody had mentioned, not in this meeting, the possibility of maybe some of the school transfer development rights. If there was any left over, that maybe it could come to this area. I don't know if that would be helpful. I haven't really thought that through, but it was an idea that stuck in my head as a potential. Have we thought about that? Is whether pros and cons of that. So if you wouldn't mind maybe going over the bonus FAR and then speaking to that other idea, that'd be great. Thanks.
Sure. Thank you. I was just jotting down some of your question points. Just to reiterate the timing of plans, we expect Google to come forward within a matter of months, if not sooner, to submit for their North Bay Shore Master Plan, which will include a portion of the Gateway Master Plan. That's the first thing. The second thing is, you asked about other proposals. Besides Google, SciWest had, they didn't submit formally a plan to the city, but they did release a concept plan several months ago. And, you know, if the EPC so desires, you know, you could ask if Mr. Vieira is still with us, if they've had any rethink or plan to move forward with that other alternative that they had proposed or had made available in the media. In terms of the bonus FAR, again, just to clarify, we have 250,000 square feet of bonus office FAR remaining. And in the fall, we'd like to send out postcards to property owners within the complete neighborhood areas, telling them that we have this remaining 250,000 square feet of bonus office FAR. And we'd like to, the council would like to allocate this remaining amount, probably in early 2022. So again, that could become part of the equation, as Mr. Vieira mentioned, perhaps some currency, for lack of a better word, or a more attractive amount of office square footage that could help maybe make a larger development more feasible. So again, 250,000 square feet remaining, and that will be decided on hopefully in early 2022. In terms of the TDR for schools, I'd have to look into that some more. I know we've used that in several other areas, and we are meeting in a staff meeting next week, actually, to talk about that. So there will be more information on that forthcoming.
Oh, thank you.
I guess a question for, I guess, Mr. Alkire or Ms. Lee. In the staff report, only kind of two alternatives were left at the end for the UPC to either approve or essentially completely reject what's been proposed. Is there a middle option? I guess I'm kind of hearing that there's general in general, that the framework, that ultimate kind of goal, nobody seems to be saying, oh, that's not where we want to go. It's more a question of viability at this point. And that is there an option to say we would recommend that council send staff back to further look at this further, to continue to try to identify an option that provides a stronger economic viability? Is that an option as well, or is our only two choices yes or no?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The commission has more options than just recommending full-scale approval or denial. So what the chair has just suggested is one viable option. The commission has a lot of latitude to determine what they'll be recommending to council.
Commissioner Caprillis?
So kind of what I'm hearing from us is, the large scale plan seems something that we would like to pursue, but until we can hear from ideas from the two major stakeholders in this of, what is their idea of financial feasibility? What are they talking about? Are we going to phase this project in so everybody can have a small piece of the pie? I mean, it's really hard at this moment to say one way or another that this is a realistic way to move forward. We're talking about that one particular parcel being included into this gateway, and if it's just to include that one parcel, then that to me seems reasonable. But as far as the overall, how do we move forward, we do need to have the Google SciWest input and get their ideas in a little bit more reasonable for me. Because I don't, unless we have their ideas and it's just like, well, it's not financially feasible. Well, what do you mean would be financially feasible? What are you looking for? Because I'm not hearing that, and I think it would be helpful to have that discussion. Do you hear the same concerns, Martin, from Google?
We haven't heard that to the degree that we've heard it from SciWest, and certainly as evidenced by the two letters, if you, Commissioner, were to read those. Again, Google supported the general concept, but SciWest did have some concerns.
Commissioner Yin?
Yeah, it's tricky. I want to just confirm that this process that we're going through, there's no master plan that's put forward where it's like guaranteed economically viable for everyone involved. I understand that. I think what is sort of holding me back is just the degree to which SciWest had stated their case. And I don't want to hold back the process necessarily, because I think things can still move forward. There's room and time to move forward. And it's a matter of how do we do that, because we all want to get to a point where we have something built out there, that we got the housing, we've got the mixed use, we're at least getting some of the concept in play. So are you saying that the process moving forward would allow for more economic viability talks and allow for movement of things so that we can come to a place down the line where it works for both parties? Because I know that the city has put a lot of work into this, and that's not the reason to approve it. However, I think it is important to at least start the process to get it moving forward. And I'm trying to find or figure out what the options are so that we can strike a balance of still moving forward, but still getting information from everybody else and moving ahead. Does that make sense?
So, Martin, do you have a specific response to Commissioner Yin at this point, or you want to hold off?
Maybe I'll just hold off and wait for the rest of the commission to comment.
Okay, Commissioner Haymeyer.
Thank you. I think I want to underscore a couple of points. One being that I am completely in support of the city-led master plan moving forward the vision of realizing the development and the scale of development that we want to see, particularly in the Gateway area. I also want to comment that we are making decisions without full information all the time, and this moment it's particularly acute. I think, and Martin and I have talked about this before, right? Development at North Bayshore is unlike anywhere else in the country. And as a result, I mean, it requires us to make some tough assumptions. And I think the piece that was most compelling to me from staff's comments was that there's this openness to a developer-led proposal about what the economic feasibility would look like for let's just say in this instance, SciWest, that doesn't have the benefit of other parcels in the precise plan area. So I think if Chair Cranston, I know eventually get to emotion. That's what you were suggesting about some kind of middle ground, thinking about the economic analysis. But I think if we could really emphasize the openness that Martin was describing, that if SciWest or Google wanted to come forward and say, here's what it would look like to pencil out to us, I think that would maybe temper some of the conversation that we're
I guess maybe a comment and then maybe at least to start at a proposal here. It sounds like some kind of economic analysis may have been done by the outside consultant. I would feel better if I was looking at this and I had something from the outside that said, here's what we think it is. It's viable, it's not viable. This is how far we're off. And it might have some guidance to council to say, if you want this to be viable, here are things you need to think about. I would be of a mindset to say something along the lines of that we recommend that council direct staff to bring that kind of analysis back for us to be able to see and for council to be able to see, something that shows at least a roadmap to viability. It doesn't necessarily mean that things like the park and lieu fees and those kind of things are all settled, but if it says here's the degree of the gap that we see today, and here are additional recommendations that would take us down the path of addressing those, or SciWest's concerns are unfounded. But at this point, I feel like if council, they wouldn't be able to make a good decision on this either. And so I'm basically something along the lines of that EPC recommends that it directs staff to provide an economic analysis of the proposed plan and identify major shortcomings and potential resolutions to things that the council may be able to take that would address those gaps. Something along that line. What other people think of that? Is that a viable option, Ms. Lee or Martin?
I mean, certainly the commission could make a recommendation to council with a request for additional information to either be presented to council along with this project. If EPC is not comfortable making a recommendation and would like to continue this item pending some additional information, we could certainly take a look at that. Again, I don't know how much more additional information we could provide that would kind of be a definitive roadmap to ultimate feasibility. In other words, if our economic consultant were to come back and to say, here's the gaps and shortfalls, but that would require amending, adopting a new fee schedule, for example, or reducing certain fees or all kinds of things, that could be a longer study. And it may, we may not have the will, the city council direction to actually embark on that. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we have embarked on a project to reassess our parkland dedication fees. So there's just a couple options for you, and maybe I'll just pause and if Ms. Lee has anything else to add to that.
So sounds like, does a shake of a head mean yes, it's an option, or?
Oh, I mean, I didn't have anything else to add to what Martin said.
Okay, Commissioner Dempsey.
So I guess a follow-up question for Martin. Martin, do you feel that staff have enough of a detailed understanding of what's missing from the perspective of the two landholders involved? Do you have that information? Do you feel like you understand it well enough? Or is what we're missing here really sort of detailed input from the landholders?
That is one, not so much on the Google side, because Google's master plan does include a plan for some residential units, I believe a hotel and some retail within the Gateway master plan. So certainly not from Google. From SciWest, it has not always been exactly transparent about what they think would work or could work. Again, their previous proposal, again, it was just an informal concept, but I want to say they proposed approximately 2,000 residential units and either no retail or very limited retail. In fact, probably no retail at all. And again, that was just an informal concept that they released. And I think it had some qualifications to that. And so we would probably need to hear more directly from SciWest to understand, is that something they really feel is viable, the only viable option for them? Or do they feel the master plan should include some additional language? And it wasn't clear to me from their letter what exactly they would recommend changing. So again, just to answer your question again, probably you need a little bit more information from SciWest, because it has not always been exactly clear about what they would propose as an alternative to what you see before you.
Okay. Commissioner Dempsey, you still have your hand up?
Hey,
Follow-up question?
Yeah, would it be appropriate to ask Mr. Vieira here if more information is something that we could request from the landholder, or would it be more appropriate to direct staff to kind of reach out to the landholder and ask for some of this additional information? What's the best means for trying to get the information that I think we all agree we kind of want to see?
Well, I mean, I think we could just ask Mr. Vieira that directly about what he would feel comfortable responding to or sharing tonight. And if there's things that he can share, would like to share, he's free to do that. If we would like to defer it more to the staff, for staff to take a look at things, we can also do that as well. So I would defer if Mr. Vieira wanted to comment at this point.
Mr. Vieira, you still with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you. And I'm free to answer any questions that you might want to propose.
So I guess what I'm hearing from commissioners and from Mr. Alcar is a lack of understanding of what specific changes or gaps SciWest has identified and potential actions or changes to the plan that might address those. Are you open to having that to further discussion with staff? Or can you articulate that quickly here now sufficiently to address the commissioner's concerns, or is it better that it's with staff?
I think it's entirely appropriate to address the matter with staff again. It has been addressed in the past as part of our proposal a number of months ago to build a full residential project on all our lands. As Martin mentioned, we did propose a rather large number of residential units to hopefully fill in the balance of the expected residential for North Bayshore. The issue I think we're all confronted with is there's frustration in that we want to do something. We all want to do something. I've been trying to get through this process since 2013 when I submitted my first gatekeeper application. And, it's been recently encountered again with the Sobrato project. It's a difficult proposition to make the numbers work unless there's a means to mitigate the impacts that are already existing in the marketplace. Office has always been the one product that has been able to afford the impacts. And, the subsequent chipping away of entitlements on the Gateway site further exacerbates the problem where the Gateway can't unlock itself unless there's a means to pay for things or absorb fees or mitigate fees and impacts on different land holdings or on different kind of product development. Retail is probably one of the least affordable kind of product to build in this marketplace. It's becoming increasingly so. So it's a subsidized component. It's an amenity feature. We know that. We were willing to accept that in our multifamily project. But still, when you pack the multifamily costs together, and these are not construction costs necessarily, those are what they are, but they're fees, they're impact fees, they're mitigation costs for development in North Bayshore. Those should be reassessed. We've all had this conversation with staff in this process, so we'd be more than willing to sit down again. And it's not something that just we're encountering; it's others as well. It should be looked at holistically. It was discussed as being needed to be addressed holistically. And yet it's kind of a kick the can. It's almost as though you put this plan in place and then you just kind of go on about it, but it doesn't ever unlock this site. This site just can't be deployed unless there's a means to accommodate what's already out there. But we would absolutely be interested in sitting down and trying to run through the financial side of the equation.
Thank you. Mr. That address your question? So I feel like we need to kind of circle around to some kind of motion here as to.
I'm sorry, Chair Cranston?
Yep.
Could I just ask while we have Bill, can he just give a 1 minute overview of the residential concept that was referenced? I think it was 2,000 residential with limited or no retail. Would the commission be willing to hear that just for perspective?
I would. I see nods. Okay. Mr. Vieira, can you comment to it?
Yes, and I will have to apologize. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head. It's been quite a few months, but we designed two alternatives. One included a fitness component, essentially operating here in the Bay Area, Villa Sport, and the other one was 100% residential. I believe both of those concepts included a complement of amenity retail, as we call it, which is not quite near the 50,000 square feet, but it did include food uses, plazas, and all of the open spaces that you would expect to see in and around a residential neighborhood. It did park well, and it had a mix of, I believe, 1 to 3 bedrooms We did meet your affordable requirements for the city as well. So it was we believe it was a viable project that would be well received.
Thank you.
That's Commissioner Ian.
Yeah, I was just going to ask that, lately, given all the construction prices and the prices of materials just skyrocketing, it's come down some, but does that take away the viability of that project? And would you say it's still viable, like right now, if you submitted that you could just move right forward with it?
Fair question. We actually are under construction right now on 380 units. We're in the process of building those. We started about 2.5, maybe 3 months ago now. So we are dealing with construction costs in the current marketplace. They've actually softened a bit, which is encouraging. And depending upon where we fall in the optimism spectrum, this delta may have a further cooling of the marketplace. When you look at the project pipeline for new construction, permits are slowing down, and we tend to see price relief in those situations. We are now approved to begin construction on another 400 units here in the Bay Area. So that project is to start construction in a couple months. We actually demo the site next month to begin construction. So we are building in this environment. We're making the numbers work. We're fortunate in some respects that we've owned this land for a period of time. We're a legacy company, which means that, we will stretch to do the right thing at the right time. And we believe that residential in the Bay Area will always have worth. And of course, in this marketplace, it's a very desirable community to build in. And we would look to execute. There's nothing in our modeling that really holds us back.
So would you say that you would move forward with a concept and a proposal to staff sometime soon?
I can't absolutely give you 100% commitment today.
Sure. No, I'm not asking for 100% commitment, but is that the general direction you guys are heading?
Yeah, we know we will have an opportunity to redeploy that site. And it is something that we would desire to do. We know it's not at its highest and best today. Again, we're a legacy company in that we build for future generations. So it is our desire to try to put in place the right format on that real estate for long term. That's kind of how we approach all of our properties. When we partner with you, we partner for life effectively. We've been around since 1948. There's every intention to be around past whatever 2148. So we would look to do this.
Martin, you had your hand up first.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And I appreciate Mr. Vieira clarifying and sharing that information. I think maybe one way for the EPC to consider both what's in front of you, the master plan, and what Mr. Vieira just said is that if you have the Gateway Master Plan in front of you on page 17, it does kind of outline the different types of land uses by parcel, and the SciWest is parcel A. And if you look at that chart, it includes columns that have residential, office, open space, retail, and retail, entertainment, hospitality. So maybe one way for the Planning Commission to think about this, and again, without the benefit of a plan from SciWest in front of you, but what Mr. Vieira just described of a Villa Sport fitness center, of some amenity retail, whatever that amount is, of a substantial amount of residential, including affordable units, would that package together meet your vision as a community member for the Gateway Master Plan area? I think that's part of the big question here is if you think what he just described could potentially fit into your vision, that would be something to hear from.
Right. I think Commissioner Caprillis, you had your hand up. It's not back up. Are you?
Yes, my comment was, and by the same token, to Mr. Vieira, what we were hoping that if you're putting in place part of what we are envision a complete neighborhood would look like, that's kind of what we're trying to do here. And I think it's not something that is that easy. I think you have, one piece of the puzzle, and there are several amenities that you would like to see within a complete neighborhood, and we're just wanting to make sure that your proposal fits into that overall vision here. And I think that's what we're trying to get at. And I think right here, right now, and with this climate, as you mentioned, it's very up and down and kind of flexible. And so it's hard to look into the future to see how realistic that is. And I think it's not, maybe we're asking too much to say, well, let's look at the overall financial feasibility. Are we looking at it right here, right now? You mentioned you were under construction for, I'm not sure where you're building in the Bay Area right at the moment, but certainly we would like to see, we know we're going to have to be flexible on what we're seeing from a financial point of view for that overall area. So perhaps we're asking more than either you or we can provide just at this moment, but we still feel like that complete neighborhood vision is what we want to achieve, and want to certainly see if you want to be a part of that. So those are just my thoughts right now. And I think that we're at such a high level, it's not so easy to say, yeah, that's, the concept and the precise plans and everything that we put together before. Yeah, and we're always asking for what we ideally would like to see out there. But as Mr. Alkire mentioned earlier in the meeting, to have you come through with, a proposal of what you think is reasonable for your participation in creating that overall neighborhood is certainly what we're open to hear and would love to see from you.
So Martin, you still have your hand up? Are you? No, okay. So Martin and Sandy, I guess a question here. So Martin, you used the term continuance. I am interested in, it sounds like Mr. Vieira and SciWest is willing to come back and sit down with staff. I am not of the inclination to say that should be infinite and there shouldn't be some time frame associated with it. Would something along those lines that says that we recommend that council continue this item for 3 months to give SciWest an opportunity to present specific recommendations to staff, review with staff that could be potentially incorporated into a plan, and to bring it back within 3 months. If they've not presented something in that time frame, then that would, to me, I think it sounds like they're interested in doing something and acting quickly. And to me, if that's putting a time limit would and actually getting something done quickly would reinforce, would validate that interest and commitment. So if we did something like recommend that council continue this item for 3 months to allow SciWest and staff to review potential changes to the plan that would address their concerns within the overall framework. Is that an option that we could propose as an item? Martin, Sandy?
Is the time frame realistic?
I think if Mr. Vieira is still on the line, if we're engaging him or asking him, I think we would need to check regarding his interest in participating in that and the timeline. That's the first thing. The second thing is certainly that's a reasonable request. Planning Commission has the latitude to request additional information with the goal of trying to reconcile the differences that we've been talking about tonight. So maybe I'll just pause and see if Mr. Vieira has a reaction to your comments.
Mr. Vieira?
Yes, I would welcome the opportunity. Granted, it is a fairly short time frame, but I would certainly welcome the opportunity to engage and hopefully sort through what we think will be kind of the bottom line, so to speak, on how to financially construct something that makes sense for not just us, quite frankly. There's going to be others as well, but certainly we would be more than interested in sitting down.
May I ask a follow-up, Chair Cranston, to Mr. Vieira?
Sure.
So I want to make sure I understood. One of the things you said earlier is that office is what makes this pencil and to unlock the gateway site. So the proposal that you were originally discussing, the concept was 100% residential. Is that right?
That is correct. That's the second iteration, I believe, of what we had looked at. The first proposal we were looking at was the 1.5 million square foot project combined with LinkedIn.
Okay, thank you. And maybe to Martin, right? And I mean, at any time, SciWest could come forward with a proposal under the city-led master plan, right? There's nothing precluding them from doing so. Because I guess the thing that, at least from my perspective, I'm sure if you want to make a proposal for a 3-month, period to have more time to look at the economic analysis, I guess I just wonder, to what extent is it the city's responsibility to make sure a plan is economically feasible for a developer, right? It seems like, yes, Google has these other land holdings, but I mean, we can encourage conversations, but at some point, I don't think that's the role of the city to make sure that it's economically viable for a developer. We should plan for what we want. It's a long time horizon, and this is an area we've identified for high intensity growth.
Yeah, I appreciate that perspective, but I do think it's incumbent on those that pass edicts that they make sense. They're able to be executed. And, a plan is just pictures. And I think it sets unreasonable expectations in the community that something someday will happen there. If you know going into this process that the economic model doesn't work, I really struggle to understand what is gained by passing the plan. All you've done then is further kick the can down the road of infeasibility. We've had the discussion at the time that the office was reallocated that by doing so, you removed one of the impetus for bringing parties to the table to structure a fee arrangement with the city that makes economic sense and subsidizes those components of a community or of a precise plan area that can't economically be justified on their own. But, be that as it may, the action was taken, that ship has sailed, it's done. Now you're faced with another decision. And this decision only further exacerbates that problem of infeasibility in an area. If you really want to execute on a plan, you have to consider, how do you get all of the parties to the table and make a fair allocation of existing impacts and how to mitigate those existing impacts and future impacts based upon the most beneficial form of real estate that's going to be created. North Bayshore is a vibrant part of the market in the Bay Area. You need to be cognizant of what you do next to keep it viable, and then to also extract out what you can to offset what isn't already working. And so residential incorporation in this area absolutely is the right thing to do. I think the concept of creating a master plan at some point is the right thing to do. It just has to be a viable master plan that at the end of the day, you have confidence that the parties can execute under. Aspirational is good, but realistic is better.
I thank you for those comments. I guess I look forward to seeing a formal application at some point to better understand what that looks like from your perspective.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
So we're back to the commission, Commissioner Yin.
Yes, sorry. I think I've raised my hand after Mr. Vieira had spoken the very first time, and what you had said had actually given me more hope that this was going to be doable. You said you were a legacy company and you had construction projects all around town. Despite COVID, you were still in construction and were able to handle that fluctuation in the rise in costs. And I know some things like framing and wood just shot up like 3 times the amount. So I know that was a lot to weather. And I appreciate that you are looking for the long term of the community, for your business and for the city. So that gave me more hope that you would be able to come to the table with the concept and work with the city to move forward. I was just thinking that we all agree on the vision and the concept. And I totally hear what you're saying, that without having it built, it's just a pretty picture and no one wants, this booklet sitting around for 50 years and having North Bayshore look the same as it does now. Google is willing to move forward. Granted, you had stated that they had some more flexibility than perhaps you guys do. I, right now at this moment, am trying to weigh, it's kind of like, I have this analogy in my head, is like when you're trying to find a marriage partner, that there's no perfect fit. Some things are just not going to work. It's just a matter of choosing the things that you can live with. So the vision, we're all agreed that it's a great vision. There might have to be some compromises here and there, but the compromises can't be made where then we lose the vision and we have, just more of the same. What we're aiming for is something greater than what we have. And so I think if we can come to the table, everyone comes to the table willing to give, which it sounds like your company is willing to give, then discussions can really move forward on how to make it economically viable. What things maybe can be mushed around a bit. I'll be honest, do not understand a lot of the tools it takes to get things financed, to get things done. But just the fact that you can have all these construction projects in play, fluctuate, sort of weather the fluctuations. I just wonder if maybe the toolbox of finances, that's something to look at too. I don't know. This is complete ignorance speaking now at this point, that maybe there are other parts of the process that can also move around to get this to work. Just to think sort of a larger picture. So after what you had said, I actually became more hopeful that we could put forward to the council that we're all in agreement that we like the vision. We would approve the vision, but we also agree with you that it has to be viable if we want to see this part of this vision built, and that, nothing works well if players aren't a team. We have to come together and say, we do want this to work and be willing to give. And it sounded like you're willing to come to the table. So that is hopefulness to me. Maybe we say to the council, the EPC sounds like we're all in agreement of the vision. We would like to see that this actually happens. Maybe once you have a concept and put forward to the staff, that process can begin. So as far as tonight, I just want to be a little bit more clear in the separation of the vision from the process moving forward. I guess that's where I'm confused. Honestly, if more economic information came to me, even in 3 months, I do not know that I could make a decision based on more economic decisions, because I still do not have enough knowledge of the balance of those things. So I leave that to staff. So right now, I guess I'm seeking guidance as to how to put forward our recommendation to council. So I'm going to put that out to the rest of the council members.
I guess I don't know that I've heard a clear consensus across the board. I think there's, some question as to whether certainly I heard Commissioner Hairmeyer raising the question is, okay, is there anything that if we were to move this forward, is there anything that would prevent SciWest from coming forward with something within that framework? I think, I guess part of what I heard from Mr. Vieira was that at least a component of what they would look at would be to find some way to ensure that they secured a component of that currency, the 250,000 of office space that's still floating around. But that's sounds like that's a decision that council already made in a direction to make it float. So I guess I'm if forced to make a decision on the two recommendations, I would probably vote to not move ahead. But at the same time, I think there's a lot of good things in the plan, what Martin and team have done, and so I'm more inclined along the direction of, you've got an X amount of time, whether it's 2 months or 3 months. SciWest, you've got to come back with something, sit down with staff, make sure it's very, very clear, and staff can address and respond to that, and find a way to incorporate it. And if they're not able to present something satisfactorily to staff to be able to address it, then we do exactly what you said, Commissioner, is we have to make a decision without information. But it feels like there's an openness to have that dialogue, but I'm not comfortable with it being infinite. I'd like to see it move ahead, just like Commissioner Hairmeyer, get something locked down. So I'm inclined towards some kind of continuance. And if SciWest doesn't come back with something within a certain amount of time, they've had their chance to talk, and they're SOL if they don't. So Sandy, you had your hand up next. Oh, sorry.
I'll let Commissioner Dempsey go first. Thank you.
Okay.
So in truth, I think, we could go either direction. We could do a continuance, or we could go ahead. And it's true that if we went ahead, we could go back and amend it any way we wanted to. The truth is, I am somewhat on the side of a continuance, as you described, Chair Cranston, primarily because I think a continuance would be, in my opinion, a sort of a gesture of openness. It communicates to the landholder, to Mr. Vieira and his client, that we very much want to hear what they have to say, and we want the details, and we want those details to go to staff here, so staff can help us understand kind of a deeper, better, 4K version of kind of what the financial analysis is, and maybe some staff could come back and tell us, hey, here's a few things that you could tweak that might actually make it work right. But I think just as a gesture of openness, I'm somewhat on the side of going for a continuance.
Commissioner Hairmeyer?
I really appreciate the conversation. I think that what I'm hearing from colleagues is that we want to better understand where SciWest is coming from. And I think a part of the staff report that was very telling to me is what was written on page 7 that says, master plans are not common regulatory tools used within the city, as development permits are typically submitted and based on development regulations within a zoning or a precise plan designation. This commission has spent so much time, staff has spent so much time really thinking about what we want North Bay Shore to be. And if the majority wants to do a continuation and give some kind of time bound conversation, that's fine. But I think we know what we want, right? And so we want development to move forward. And I just don't know that it's the city's role to be able to say this is going to pencil out or not. If we want to look at the economic analysis and understand what are the assumptions that are made and have that added context as information, that's reasonable. But a master plan isn't, in my experience, it doesn't seem like that's the tool to bring SciWest to the table to really understand what they want. If they have a proposal and a plan, they should put it out there and do it formally so that we can understand what their analysis says. Here's what works for our company. Just my 2 cents.
Sandy?
Thank you. Before I talk about some of the options and clarify what you mean by continuance, I just wanted to kind of emphasize something that was in the staff report and Mr. Alkire had mentioned as well, that, there was a lengthy process that the city undertook to try to mediate with SciWest and Google to come up with a joint master plan. And it was after that lengthy process that the council just decided the city should initiate the Gateway Master Plan process itself. So this has been many years in the making, first of all. So I just wanted to clarify what we're talking about with respect to a continuance. There's an option to, as Commissioner Haymeyer was saying, to seek additional information and have a short continuance so that staff can bring back that information that the commission thinks would be useful to make a recommendation on the plan. Another option would be if the commission wanted to recommend adoption of the plan, but wanted staff to develop more financial feasibility analysis and also talk to SciWest, one of the property owners, prior to getting to council. That could be part of a recommendation as well. Another recommendation could be, to adopt the plan, subject to the council receiving some additional information and being more satisfied with respect to the financial feasibility. And the council may have, a different opinion about what information they ultimately need, but there are a number of different approaches. And I'm interested, in if Mr. Alkire has anything to say about which options might be more helpful.
Yeah, if I may, Chair. Thank you, Ms. Lee. I think that was very helpful to outline those three options, and I think certainly the last two you mentioned, recommending adoption, but subject to perhaps more financial information from both the city side and SciWest. One thing for the commission to think about, a positive of that approach, is that you can decide tonight if the bones, so to speak, if the policy, if the plan itself meets your vision as a community member, then as Ms. Lee said, you could go ahead and recommend adoption with some provisions subject to additional information that we could then present to council. So I just wanted to point that out, that if the commission felt strongly that they like the plan, they like the policies, they like the flexibility, whatever it is about the plan that you like, but you wanted to condition some additional information, that's certainly an option.
Commissioner Capellas? And
I would be in favor of just getting some additional information from staff based on, further, input from SciWest. I think that would give us a little more information. If they came here with, as Commissioner Yen said, if they came with the feasibility, if it means that we have to, as a city, change our financial structure in order to support a developer to do his development, that's a whole nother question that is not really visible to us, but certainly a possibility that there might have to be changes there. So I think that is for staff and for SciWest to determine, and I would like some additional information through staff, because I think we count on their expertise to really kind of interpret that and to understand the consequences of those particular decisions. But in general, I think that the plan we've come up with is something that we do see taking place out in North Bayshore. Yes, it's complex and it's not an easy thing to realize. And I'm willing to approve that plan with that additional information coming forth, so we can pass along further recommendation to the council.
Can I a clarifying question, Commissioner Williams?
Of course.
So I think Ms. Lee kind of presented for option one was essentially we wait for that information before we make recommendation, while the second and third options were that we essentially vote on approval with additional information after the approval. Are you advocating the first or one of the latter two?
I was advocating the third.
So approving, and then that we would ask staff to bring additional information
Correct.
to council. Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Clarifying. Okay, Commissioner Yin?
Oh, perhaps I misunderstood the third option, but I was leaning towards the second, which is to approve the plan and the concept, and then just make recommendations to council that perhaps when SciWest comes back with a concept, that they just work a little bit more on the economic feasibility somehow portion. And if then pretty much I'm saying that we approve of the concept, that we make the recommendation, that they look at the economic feasibility a little bit more pending SciWest's proposal.
Okay, so not full approval, but generally approving the concept and getting more economic information. Was that your second option, Sandy?
Was that the
Maybe
second one?
Well, the second one was that the commission recommend adoption of the plan with and request that staff provide additional information to council prior to the council meeting on financial feasibility or whatever the commission thinks is important for the council to have in front of them to make that final determination. The third option I threw out was, recommend adoption if council develops some additional information, and satisfies themselves. So they're similar, but it was whether or not staff is going to do the work before it gets to council, or, council directs staff to provide some other information prior to adoption. Okay. But you would, if those financial feasibility or other criteria are satisfied, then the council adopt the plan.
So
you can massage it as you will.
Well, can I try to paraphrase? I think what you're saying is option one is we wait until we get the financial viability and then we decide. Option two is we say we like the idea, but it doesn't get presented to council until staff can include financial information. And then option three is it goes to council and we recommend that they ask for additional information if they feel they need it. Is that the difference?
Yeah, kind of. I'm kind of confused.
I think it makes sense to, if the commission is going to forward an item to council, to have a recommendation, on the plan. And you may want additional information provided to council, or that staff have a further discussion with SciWest before they go to council. And so that council will have additional information to make a decision. So if the commission has some concerns that they would like to have had addressed, but the commission is still comfortable making a recommendation for adoption, then you can recommend to council to take those steps, adopt it, but ask staff to provide council with that information. But if the commission is not comfortable with making that recommendation now of adoption because the commission feels they need some additional information, then you could request that staff bring back some information. I mean, I would hope that it's information that could be developed in not too long of a time period, because I think if it was deferred, for a substantial period, the council is expecting to see this master plan at some point. I imagine this calendar year.
I would like to make the recommendation that we like we approved the plan and would like to send it to council with the additional information from SciWest. I don't necessarily feel like if I get information back from SciWest that I would be in a position to give further recommendations to the council. So I don't want to kick the can down the road, but I do think they need the additional information that SciWest is willing to provide.
That sounded kind of like a motion. Is there a second on that?
That actually sounds good to me. My only question is, would Mr. Vieira be, he had said that he had already given this information. Would any new information in a short time period be different than what they already know? Because I don't want to drag this out. I'm all for approving it as is, as the vision. What the recommendation is, I'm still a little bit up in the air about.
I guess I came away kind of feeling like Mr. Vieira felt he was pretty specific, but Mr. Alcare didn't feel that they were, it sounded like it was still fairly vague and it wasn't well formed to be able to address. Is that correct, Martin? Sound like it wasn't well, you didn't feel it was relatively complete. Is that correct?
Oh, well, I mean, what SciWest had proposed wasn't something they formally submitted. It was just as described by Mr. Vieira. But I would add, as I mentioned earlier, what he described is within the bookends, if you will, of what the plan allows. So in that regard, it would be, one could consider it to be consistent with the plan, as he noted.
So it sounds like we're not sure.
So Martin, bottom line, is it just about the money?
Well, I mean, you know, the financials is a tough one. Again, the office FAR is a valuable piece of this, and as was mentioned several times, the 250,000 square feet of office remains unallocated, and perhaps if that was allocated, some or all of it to SciWest, perhaps that would change the money equation, as you note, Ms. Capriles. But I just want to note that the plan itself before you tonight does just set out that office uses are allowed up to 250,000 square feet. And that's all the plan is trying to do at this point, is trying to set forth that vision, the policies, the street network, the bike, the PED improvements, all those things. And the financial piece, namely the bonus FAR, is something that will be decided later. So the bottom line, to answer your question, you know, the financial piece is a concern, and the 250,000 square feet of office, once decided, could tilt that in a more favorable condition.
Commissioner Hammer.
So I appreciated Sandy's suggestion for option 2 of liking the concept that it meets my vision for what we had described in North Bay Shore at the Gateway as vibrant, mixed use, high intensity, connected. And I think I'm feeling less comfortable with the second clause of asking for more information to come from SciWest. I would really like to see that come from the consultant, and to have the whatever analysis was presented to staff really clearly spelled out for council to say, here are the different scenarios. I am comfortable with the fact that the city-led master plan allows SciWest to come forward with a proposal at any time they wish, with what they have done, their own internal analysis to say, here's what pencils out. So the suggestions I've heard so far have really been putting the onus on having more information from SciWest, and I think I'd like to shift that to have it come from the economic consultant.
from staff, is it? You dropped out of the last, did you say that feasibility, that additional information comes from staff?
From the consultant, or whatever information was
Okay.
was independently done as opposed to developer led.
Okay. Commissioner Caprillis, is that consistent with what you were thinking?
I think that's perfectly fine. I just feel like there's a lot of confusion about the information in general from everybody. So I kind of think that Commissioner Haymeyer is right in saying that, you know, we need to leave it to the experts that are doing the detailed work here to come up with the information that is needed for the council. Because in general, I think the concept and the vision and the precise plans, having been through all of those together, I think that's what we want to see out there. And we're just looking for a way to move it forward. And because the city has been asked to do it, I think that we're in a position to say that's what we want to see out there. And we're open to what you would like to do, what your part of that is, and let's have a discussion.
Commissioner Dempsey, you've been kind of quiet, but you started nodding there. Are we zeroing in on some consensus here around approval with a specific recommendation that staff and the consultant provide as much detailed financial analysis as they can to help council in their deliberation?
Yes, I think, I agree with Commissioner Haymeyer exactly that I would prefer to see whatever new information that comes be sort of processed and put in front of the council by staff. I think that's a really good point. I haven't got much chance to talk about this, but I actually love the vision of what we got. I really want to see it happen. I feel like perhaps we're rushing a bit, but maybe it's because I wasn't here for the last 3 years where everybody was trying to get this ball rolling. So, I'm happy, I can go along with my colleagues in sending this forth to the council as long as there is strong provision for getting additional data, presumably data that the council hasn't seen before. It should be new data, not recycled data, but new data. And giving that to staff with enough time for staff to kind of really process and analyze it and make that maximally useful to the council. That's kind of what I'm feeling like makes the most sense.
So here in kind of 3, Sandy, could you craft language that somebody might want to make as a motion?
Okay. Yes, and I would point out that there are several items on the agenda for this item. So the commission will take each item separately, I believe. We'll vote separately on each of them. And so this whole discussion pertains to recommendation number 4 as part of item 5.1 with respect to the Gateway Master Plan. So the commission does need to also vote on the general plan amendment and the North Bayshore plan, precise plan amendments. But for recommendation number 4, it sounds to me that the commission would move to recommend the city council adopt a resolution of the city council of the city of Mountain View adopting the North Bayshore Gateway Master Plan with the provision of additional financial feasibility analysis to council. Does that sound like it reflects?
Yeah, it's a little weaker than I was.
Oh, what were you thinking, Mr. Chair?
I just, it sounds like the consultant has done a financial analysis, that financial analysis, that detailed financial analysis is provided to council. But maybe that's incorporated saying, but I was,
Oh, that the detailed financial feasibility analysis of the city's consultant be provided to council?
that's kind of what I was hearing.
I was trying to say that, but I think I just said it more generally. Okay.
So Commissioner Yin,
Sorry.
are you,
I was just going to say, yes, I actually like very much what Commissioner Haymeyer had said, which is she reminded us that the consultant had already done the work, and really what we're not seeing are the details. So if the details could be presented to the council, that would be great. And I would just recommend then to SciWest that they get their proposal in to start that conversation. And also maybe they could write the letter of a summary of their issues and present that as well. I mean, that's all. But I'm definitely of the mind of approving the vision.
Commissioner Hayman, you open to making a motion to approve 1, 2, 3, and 4 as amended by Attorney Lee?
Yes, but I have a feeling you're going to make me read all of the details.
Or Commissioner Capellas loves reading these things. We can ask her to do it.
Oh, no, please give Commissioner Haymeyer a chance. Come on.
All right. I would be happy to do that. And Sandy, here's what I jotted down before going down that path. I have for recommendation 4 on item 5.1, not a motion, just clarifying language. Adopt a resolution to recommend this to the city council with the provision of additional financial feasibility analysis be provided to council for consideration. Is that right?
I guess I would just add detailed financial analysis be included.
Additional detailed financial feasibility analysis be provided to council for deliberation. Was that?
That works for me. Does it work for you, Sandy?
Or for consideration, either way.
For consideration. I do have like 10 PDF windows open, so just bear with me for a minute where I get back to the original staff report. Okay, so Sandy, is it better to do it from the staff report or from the agenda?
I
make the
was
motion?
reading from the agenda. They should be the same, aren't they? Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe I'm actually reading the staff report, so they should be the same. However.
Okay. Well, here goes. I would like to make a motion that the EPC recommend to the city council approval of the initial study of environmental significance and addendum for the general plan amendment at 1555 Plymouth Street, North Bay Shore precise plan amendments, and the North Bay Shore Gateway master plan pursuant to sections 15162 and 15164 of the California Environmental Quality Act, and find that the proposed project would not result in any new significant or substantively more severe environmental impacts beyond those previously evaluated and disclosed in the general plan environmental impact report, North Bay Shore Precise Plan Environmental EIR in 2014, and North Bay Shore Precise Plan Supplemental EIR from 2017, exhibit number 1 of the EPC staff report. I'd also like to recommend a motion to adopt the resolution of the City Council of the City of Mountain View to amend the general plan land use designation at 1555 Plymouth Street from high intensity office to mixed use center, which is attached as exhibit 2 to the EPC staff report. And recommend the EPC adopt a resolution, recommend that adopting a resolution of the City Council of the City of Mountain View to amend the P939 North Bay Shore Precise Plan to include the parcel at 1555 Plymouth Street within the North Bay Shore Precise Plan Gateway Character Area, revise the bonus FAR guidelines and master plan provisions, and make minor text and graphic updates included as Exhibit 3 to the EPC staff report. And finally, make a recommendation that the city, get back to my language, adopt the EPC would recommend a resolution of the city council with a provision of providing additional detailed financial feasibility analysis be provided to city council for consideration while adopting the North Bay Shore Gateway Master Plan, Exhibit 4 of the EPC staff report.
That works, Andy.
Yeah, I just wanted to just clarify, because I think we all understand your meaning, Commissioner Haymeyer, but the recommendation is for the city council to be provided the detailed financial feasibility analysis from the city's consultant, and that the city council adopt a resolution adopting the North Bay Shore Gateway Master Plan.
Yes, as amended.
Do I have a second? I see Commissioner Capellas.
I am going to second that. Thank you, Commissioner Haymeyer.
Okay. Any last minute discussion before we go to a vote? No? Okay. Clerk Ryan?
Commissioner Dempsey,
Aye.
Commissioner Yin,
Aye.
Commissioner Capriles,
Aye.
Commissioner Haymeyer,
Aye.
and Chair Cranston.
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
Thank you. All right. With that, we will close Section 5, public hearing, and move on to new business in Section 6. This is the Environmental Planning Commission Work Plan, fiscal year 2021-22 and 22-23. Mr. Anderson, do you have a way of letting Vice Chair Lowe that we are moving on to the next item if she's still able to rejoin us?
I just did, and she just confirmed that she is on her way in. So maybe we'll just wait a second for her to log back on.
Oh, there she goes. Okay. Welcome, Vice Chair Lowe. Okay, in this section, the first item is a staff report by Principal Planner, Mr. Eric Anderson.
Yes, thank you. I'm just going to present the work plan, and I don't have a PowerPoint or anything, but I'm happy to bring it up on the screen if there are any questions that we can reference. Staff prepared this work plan that was attached to the agenda for the EPC. This was items taken from the council strategic roadmap, which was adopted back in June, plus additional council direction that has been provided over the last year or so, and other statutory EPC responsibilities. Staff capacity has been baked into this strategic roadmap, so it is reflected in the items in the EPC work plan. These work plans are generally adopted annually, but in the interest of transparency, we are providing additional 2022 to 2023 action items. I will say that it is a living document subject to changing schedules and council input. So you may find that what comes back to the EPC in 2022 may have some modifications or updated schedules and things like that. So we will be bringing these projects forward to the EPC as staff works on key deliverables and needs key EPC input on these items. ultimately, staff recommends that the EPC approve this work plan so that we can forward it to back to the city council along with other advisory body work plans. Thanks.
So, any EPC questions to start with? Just had kind of one. Oh, Commissioner Hemeyer, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to commend staff for putting this together. I know how much is on your plate, and I'm really excited about the work ahead. Thank you for all of the great work to keep this moving. It's noted every day, every time we get together. It's amazing how many things you're juggling.
Vice Chair Lowe.
I was going to say something similar. Thank you for putting together this list. It looks like we have a lot of exciting work ahead of us. I also took a look at the council's strategic priority list, and of course, there are other items that touches upon land use and planning. So I don't know, obviously we cannot put all of them on our work list. I was wondering how you came to this list, and some of the items that may have land use and planning implication may not have ended up on the list. Maybe it's a resource and timeline question.
Sure. And as I said before, this is a living document, and we may find as we work with other departments on their tasks and responsibilities that they may want EPC input on some project that they're working on. So if that happens, that we will schedule it and forward it up to the EPC. But these are the ones that have very clear connections to the EPC's purview, zoning and general plan and planning generally.
Thanks.
I guess I had the timeline for the R3 zoning is longer than I guess it was kind of earlier articulated. But I was expecting that to some extent, but it was kind of geared around what's listed as item number 10 on the no net loss, which is kind of listed as a TBD. Am I incorrect in that? I guess my impression from the council was that there was a concern that the no net loss discussion needed to occur at least. It had to be before we started really looking at R3 zoning completely. Is that still council's direction?
Yeah, so we're actually doing all that concurrently. I was going to make this announcement during announcements, but I can talk about it a little bit now. Over the next few months, we're going to be doing a broad coordinated outreach effort with both displacement response, R3, and the housing element. And so those are happening fairly concurrently so that they can inform one another. These last few items on the work plan are not at the end of the work plan because we think they're going to come later. They're at the end of the work plan because council expressed interest in holding a council study session in order to kind of determine next steps for kind of code policy, kind of what they want to do with these actions and these strategies. So we're not expecting to necessarily take some of these to the EPC before we take them to council for them to determine kind of allocation of staff resources and whether they actually want to work on these things. We expect that there may be zoning or general plan outcomes, for example, from the displacement response strategy, but it depends on council direction.
Okay. So it sounds like it's a much more maybe in-depth process than maybe was originally anticipated on R3. With all this outreach.
Exactly.
I mean, that's great. I applaud that. I would ask that staff share with commission when those outreach things are going to occur. So that we could,
Absolutely.
listen in and kind of hear the input. It's always, personally find it valuable to hear what the community is saying firsthand rather than in a summary report from staff later. They're both valuable, but hearing the actual feedback I find very valuable. I don't know that other commissioners will or not, but I certainly would like to hear that. Okay. So any other questions before we take it out to public comment? No? Okay. So Ms. Horan, do we have anyone? So at this point, would any member of the public like to provide comment on this item? If so, please click the raise hand button in Zoom or press star 9 on your phone. Users can mute and unmute themselves with star 6. The EPC clerk will start the timer to let you know when your time is up. It looks like we have one speaker.
How long would you like me to allocate the timer?
3 minutes. 3 minutes is fine.
Okay.
Hello, you hear me okay?
Mr. Ing.
Yes. Bruce England speaking for Mountain View Coalition for Sustainable Planning and Green Spaces Mountain View again. I won't need 3 minutes. One frustration that we encounter a lot is when we look at projects that are within the scope of a particular body, say DRC and ZA, and we can't really be heard because we're talking about something that goes beyond what they're talking about. And yet projects do have ramifications in a whole lot of areas: parking, infrastructure, schools, the jobs housing imbalance, all these kinds of things. And I think that we in the public often depend on EPC to hear those projects. And I don't know what the rules are, and I don't even know if this applies to the work plan. So I leave it to you and staff to determine if this applies at this point. But it's just, we would like to see more exposure of some of these projects, even if they meet the zoning requirements, by EPC. And again, I'm not sure if there's that limitation that if something passes the zoning regulations that it doesn't come to you. But it would be great if you had more flexibility than that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. England. Any other speakers?
No, they're not.
We'll bring it back for deliberation. So any other discussion around the work plan, changes people would like to see made? Vice Chair Lowe?
Thanks. I was wondering if staff would like to respond to what Mr. England brought up.
Yeah, certainly this comes up whenever we adopt a new precise plan. I know the EPC and council have talked a lot about kind of the threshold of EPC and council review. And so we don't currently have on the work plan any kind of zoning process updates. However, and maybe Martin can speak to this a little bit, we have been doing a kind of internal review, kind of an internal process review to see how maybe we can make the city's kind of overall internal procedures a little bit more streamlined. Martin, if you're there, can you touch on whether there was any recommendations from that around review of development projects and whether there may be any outcomes from that that may get baked into zoning?
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. No, not off the top of my head. The report is still being finalized, but the emphasis on that report is the development review study to look for really efficiencies internally, the city development review process, and not so much code related.
Gotcha. Thanks for clarifying. Sorry, I wasn't sure if there was some overlap there. But yeah, it certainly comes up with new precise plans, and we don't currently have on the work plan a kind of a comprehensive zoning update, which we would kind of integrate updates to those kinds of procedures for. But if that's something that the EPC wants to recommend is forwarded as something else for council to look at, as staff may have time to address, we can forward that comment as well.
I guess maybe just a comment. It was my understanding, I mean, and this is, get this from the Commissioners Academy, not every jurisdiction today has the zoning administrator process. Mountain View was one of the early adopters to that, and so in some jurisdictions that meeting with the ZA doesn't exist at all, and so everything that would go to the ZA would come to the Planning Commission. That would certainly address Mr. England's concern that we'd be able to see all these things, but I think it was felt at the time by council that that moving the process along more expeditiously was important, and so things that felt within the code could be approved by the ZA, and so that's why Mountain View adopted that. So a step where we would see more of those things that go to the ZA would be kind of going back to what was done before, and would mean a lot more. It definitely would slow down the approval process. I don't know whether that's something we or council would really want to see, but it was one of the decisions. And Martin, you were probably around during that time. That's my understanding, was that improving that efficiency was one of the reasons that was done, to move more routine items out of EPC onto the ZA, to speed things up. Is that inaccurate?
Yes, that is correct. But also, more importantly, it was done so that the Planning Commission could have more time and attention to spend on long-term planning. So it was really a twofold rationale, because the Commission's time at that time was being caught up in variances and exceptions and all these development-related processes, and there wasn't enough time spent on long-range planning. The other thing is that the city's process was changed, oh gosh, maybe it's 6 years ago or so, where gatekeeper projects now go to the Planning Commission. So that was kind of one little tweak to that process.
Vice Chair Lowe?
If I may follow up a little bit, given that sometimes projects are really large scales now, which may or may not be the case when this policy was put in place. I wonder if that might, I know there's a balance. We need the process to be streamlined and have an efficient way of approving applications. On the other hand, hearing the community's input, especially on large projects that touch, a large portion of the community, is very critical as well. My 2 cents.
Are you proposing we make any additions to the work plan at this point, or just some as a reference for the future?
I'm not sure if this warrants making it as a standalone work item, but maybe there's a way for us to note that look for ways to engage the community more, especially in larger development projects.
Any other questions or discussions on the work plan? Okay. And then could I get a motion to approve the work plan? Mr. Lowe, your hand's still up. Are you? Commissioner Haymeyer.
I'm on a roll. I move to adopt the FY22 and FY23 Environmental Planning Commission work plan as recommended by staff.
And is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Dempsey, second. And can we get a vote?
Yes, Commissioner Capriles,
Aye.
Commissioner Haymeyer,
Aye.
Commissioner Dempsey,
Aye.
Commissioner Yin? Commissioner
Said
Yin?
aye, but
Oh,
your mouth died.
Sorry, yes, the mic
Okay.
wasn't on. Aye.
Vice Chair Lowe
Aye.
and Chair Cranston.
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
We'll move on to item number 7, commission staff announcements, updates, requests, and committee reports. Commissioner Yin, do you have an announcement or?
No announcement. Sorry. I was just, I don't mean to drag the evening out a bit. I was just, maybe one of these days, I could just talk to someone in staff, maybe Eric, and just, I was curious what the community outreach process was. I hear so often from the community, just as Mr. England had said, that they feel like they're not being included. And I know that staff tries really hard. They send out the mailers and you can't dance in front of every individual and tell them something's coming. It is up to, the community to also just look at what's available. However, maybe we're just not as efficient as we think we are. And I don't know where we can maybe improve that process. So that's something to I was just thinking about. We can do that another time.
Commissioner Caprillis?
Along those same lines, just a suggestion, we have periodically, we have neighborhood meetings that people go in front of a group in the neighborhood. And if there are big projects that are really within the vicinity of those neighborhoods, that might be an opportunity to just bring up those particular projects, just to make people aware of what's going on. I'm not necessarily, it may not be through the EPC, but I'm thinking that, just as a matter of information out to the neighborhood, I think that might be one way we could start that outreach.
Along those lines, Eric, I don't know if council's starting to think about actually doing face-to-face neighborhood meetings, but knowing when those are in advance, so that if we wanted to attend to kind of hear that feedback. I know as a member of the community, when members of the different commissions were there and questions that came up and they could answer questions, I thought that was good stuff. And so I think some of us would be open to participating in those as well. Is that a question for Commissioner Lowe? Sorry.
Thank you. I think those are great ideas. And also neighborhood association newsletters may be a good vehicle to get the information out. Certain projects may impact a certain neighborhood more, and make sure those neighborhood leaders are well aware of the different meeting timelines and whatnot.
Just was kind of a question for Eric. Are you familiar with any plans or what council's timeline is for filling out the EPC, getting a 7th member?
Yeah, my understanding is that there is, I don't know exactly when the recruitment is happening, but I believe sometime in October, we have a tentative council date for the council to interview potential commissioners. So should happen, in the next 2 to 3 months.
Have applications already closed?
No, I believe end of September is when it closes. Oh, sorry. You can answer that, Eric.
I hadn't even heard from the clerk's office that they had put out the recruitment. So maybe Commissioner Yin knows more than I do.
Oh, it's because I took over one of the half terms, and so I will be replying. And so I was told that I believe the deadline for applying. Oh, I'm sorry, so many emails here.
It's usually the end of September. I just wasn't sure if it was part of the overall recruitment or if we were doing it earlier because Commissioner Schmeezing gave notice. So
no, we're not doing a special recruitment for Commissioner Schmeezing.
It's part of the thing. And then maybe just one thing, Eric, I don't know if we have a meeting on September 1, but we have a standing commitment, so I won't be attending the September 1st meeting. I apologize.
Yes, thank you.
So yeah, next meeting, Eric.
Sure. Yeah, I did have a couple of other announcements. First off, reminder, the celebration of service on September 27th. So celebrating all the EPCs and other advisory bodies' great work. I did want to talk specifically about the housing element outreach that's starting very soon. There are actually going to be some pop-up outreach events at the farmers market starting tomorrow evening. And those are going to be, I think, every couple of weeks. We're going to have a few of those. This is to kind of get some initial outreach and input on the housing element. That, and then we're going to, as Chair Cranston requested, we're happy to keep you updated on other outreach efforts that are happening over the next few months that are all kind of coordinated between these three strategies: the housing element, the displacement, and the R3. We are going to continue Zoom meetings through at least the end of September, and the city is exploring a hybrid Zoom and in-person model for meetings. We don't know at this point whether we can go back to in-person meetings in October, but certainly, you can count on being on Zoom at least through the end of September. And then for the September 1st meeting, we do have an item. I think it's going to be a fairly quick meeting. We only have one item, and all it is some minor cleanup amendments to the East Western Precise Plan and the BMR code. So it should be just some little cleanup stuff that we want to take care of. So that's what you should expect on September 1st. And that does it for my announcements.
Okay. Anything else? Commissioner Capolas?
I just wanted to thank Commissioner Haymeyer for giving us the opportunity to go out and see some prefab affordable housing that they were doing in East Palo Alto, which was very, very impressive. And what this pastor is doing is giving a process to not only take care of the people in the RVs, but he's actually hoping to provide them jobs and actually bringing in a warehouse to actually construct some of these prefab houses in East Palo Alto, at least for 3 years. And I was just amazed at the quality of these prefab houses, and it gave me lots of hope to see how we could get really quality affordable housing put in place in Mountain View. So it was very educational, and I appreciated the opportunity, and I think there's a lot of good things to come, and it was great to see these prefab houses, and that they are taking care of the homeless community as well as providing them shelter, and then providing them job opportunities in the future. So it was a really exciting experience, and thanks Commissioner Haymeyer for that. And the project is called We Hope, if you want to look online and see what they do. It's pretty amazing.
Okay. And my last one minor request is I don't use Zoom very often, but Commissioner Yin and Mr. Anderson, and I think Sandy was using it. I want to know how you do this background blur feature. Okay. Really cool. Okay. Because I would use that all the time. And so maybe we could, if you've got a link you could point me to and how to do that, that would be great.
It's very quick. Just go up to your picture. There are 3 dots in the corner.
Okay.
Ooh, should be there. And then you choose a video filter, and then you choose the blur.
Oh, thank you so much. All right. With that, if there's nothing else, we will adjourn the meeting at 9:25 p.m. The next regularly scheduled meeting will be held on September 5th, 2021. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Hey,
Good night,
everybody.
everybody.
Good night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.